Hello there. If you know me, then you know that I've been happily married to high fantasy fiction since the day I started getting into fictional entertainment media. Yes, high fantasy fiction is my dirty little elf, my naughty little pixie, my dream woman, all puns intended. And if you know me that well, you know I like to swing sometimes with her sister, science fiction. The two girls think they're very different, they're not. The one likes to explain things through mysticism while the other uses pseudoscience. One goes to another dimension while the other simply travels to another planet. And one uses magical weapons while the other uses phaser blades. It's really the same, just a different kind of flavor. But in the early 2017, I decided to cheat on my lady. And I cheated on her hard with my newfound Mrs. Dragon Ball Z. Hello, my name is Jelle Langius. You may call me Spidey for short. Sometimes I call myself Big Brother when I'm doing material with my younger brother. And this will be my introduction video to my Dragon Ball Z content. Today I wish to talk to you about how I became a fan and what I would like to do with the fandom. Sit down and enjoy. So how did I become a fan of the Dragon Ball Z fandom? It's not that complicated of a story, so I will try and not drag it out too long. Basically, at the start of last year, in 2017, I don't know when you see this video, I was bored out of my mind. You see, I just finished my studies as a graphic designer and I had earned my diploma. So I was looking for a job. I was looking for a job as a graphic designer, so I was in between jobs, right? And I couldn't entertain myself. All the mediums I was following, or the media, they weren't really giving me anything juicy. The only thing that really gave new stuff was World of Warcraft. And I don't even play World of Warcraft. I just follow it for the story. I follow the lore videos on Nobble's channel. So my good love, high fantasy just didn't give me my fix, you know. I was too bored. A light bulb went off in my head. Just a light bulb. And I thought to myself, hey, you know what? Dragon Ball Z was a thing during the 90s, wasn't it? And the 90s were awesome. Any decade in which hard rock and heavy metal dominate music charts is worth living. So I thought, it's a thing for my youth, I should check it out. Which begs the question, why didn't I become a fan of Dragon Ball Z during my youth? Why, if it was a thing when I was a child, why didn't I follow it then, you know? And the answer is quite simple. It aired on Cartoon Network, if I recall correctly. And I didn't receive that channel on my TV or my television due to my provider. My parents had my parents had a different provider, so I couldn't get that channel. I couldn't see Dragon Ball Z. I did have Nickelodeon and I had Fox Kids, which later became Jetix. In fact, Dragon Ball GT aired on Jetix, and I saw a few episodes of that, but I knew it was an ongoing series, so I didn't get it. I didn't know who the characters were, so I became disinterested at it at the time. Dragon Ball Z aired in Holland late 90s because I'm born in 1993. And I know Dragon Ball Z started in Japan in like 1989 or something, you know, like the end 80s, begin 90s. So it must have aired in Holland late 90s. But because I couldn't see the show, I didn't become a fan. But I knew it was a thing because all the other kids were fans, right? All the other kids were yelling, Kamehameha, Kamehameha! They were playing Super Saiyans, but I didn't know the characters. I didn't know Jack, you know. You know what I followed when I was a kid? Transformers Beast Wars, motherfucker. Yo, put your hands up in the air for Transformers Black. The other kids were like, an alien has appeared on Earth. No, I was like, Plasma Pod has landed on Earth. Cheetor, go get it. Nah, fuck the Maximals. I was a Predacon fan, you know. Decepticons for life. So my favorite show, it was Beast Wars, and behind that I followed Digimon. Oh yeah, I watched Digimon. I remember what I did the day I saw the first episode of Digimon. It was summer, I was little, I saw 2 episodes. It ended with a big bug monster, the red one, like the Kurudu mon, I don't know what it was called, like the big red pincer monster, you know. And they went through the jungle, and afterwards, those 2 episodes, I went out to play outside and I played Digimon. I became a huge fan of Digimon. Yu-Gi-Oh! I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! And you know what show I loved? But I only had it on because it didn't air in Holland. But I had 2 videotapes, like video, not DVD, you know, before DVD, the big square ones, the video tapes. I had 2 episodes of Godzilla, but like the cartoon from the night, like Zilla. From the 90s, like 1995 or something. Was it a movie? No? Maybe. Like, Holland always got stuff later than America, right? It always got stuff later. But when that movie sort of came out, it got a cartoon show. I got 2 episodes on video. I watched those episodes over and over again. The animation style is amazing. All of that went away when I grew older. All of that became Phineas and Ferb. What the fuck is the Phineas and Ferb period we're living in right now? You know, bring back the real cartoons. Come on. But that's my background. That's where I grew up. I didn't had Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid. I had other stuff. I didn't miss out on anything. And you must understand that to me, like my parents, right? To them, these cartoons are for children and children only. Like the upside is I can watch violent cartoons because my parents trust the industry not to turn me into a murderous psychopath. But to my parents, those are just for children, right? And I understood that I was sort of a nerd because I liked those things. I liked video games. To my parents, video games with monsters and fictional characters are just all nerds. Like to my parents, Lord of the Rings is for nerds. It's for children. It's not what you like. My parents watch Criminal Minds, like psycho killers. That's for adults. But orcs and elves, oh, that's for nerds. That's for children. Only nerds and children watch that. You know, like Star Wars. You know what? Like the first movie I saw in theater was Star Wars Episode 1. You know what my parents did? They bought Star Wars toys for me, but they told me I couldn't open them and play with them. I had to keep them for when I was an adult, because then these toys would have become collector's items and I was able to sell them for a lot of money. That's my parents. They're fucking hardcore like that. Bunch of idiots. I didn't understand, because of my culture, because of my background, that stuff like Dragon Ball Z, in Japan, mangas are a adult form of entertainment. It's a fictional medium in which, you know, it's for adults. It's not for children, it's for adults. The stories are meant for adults. Like comic books have adult stories, and they aren't made for children. But my parents told me otherwise. So coming from that background, I saw this anime, you know, stuff grow in my culture. I saw it come up. I saw these anime fans, and what they were watching were these, this is the Japanese word, I hope I pronounced it right, this kawaii, you know, these kawaii cartoons, right? Cartoon, you know, whatever. I'm from different culture, I'm sorry. These kawaii animes, right? With these cool girls with the short skirts, the blue hair, the white eyes, and the huge gadunkas. These huge tits. Yes, to me that wasn't entertaining. I mean, those schoolgirls aren't sexy to me. I'm sorry, but with a huge head and those fake eyes, I don't find that sexually attractive. I'm sorry, I'm just not into kawaii, ecchi stuff. No, I'm not. So to me that was more of a flavor. If you were a teenager, you could get into that, but I wasn't, you know. But I got into science fiction and high fantasy. That was my thing. And I drew characters. I can show you on screen. I still draw characters, and I drew fantasy characters. And anime, it was a thing when, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon, when I was a kid. That was where anime was. So I was 23. I'm sitting at home. I'm bored. And I think to myself, hey, actually, I've been sort of close-minded about this whole anime thing. But what about Dragon Ball Z? And you know what Dragon Ball Z did? Dragon Ball Z, Akira Toriyama is the writer of Dragon Ball Z, in case you didn't know for some reason. Like, perhaps you were new to the series just as I am and you're just watching this. Akira Toriyama, he blended West and East together. He took elements from both the European culture and from the Asian culture and blended them together into a mix of both. And he inspired an entire genre known as the shonen genre, I believe. It means a few years, so the idea is that you follow a young character to adulthood, a sort of a trip to adulthood, sort of superhero-like story, but different. And it was inspired by Journey to the West. And before, like, last year or so, I had never heard of Journey to the West. Like, I heard the Monkey King. Yes, I knew who the Monkey King was. Son Wukong, I didn't know the name Son Wukong, but I know who he was as a character, but I didn't know he was from Journey to the West and what it meant and where it came from. Even though I loved mythology and I knew a lot about like Western and like Middle Eastern mythology. Eastern mythology, yeah, Asian mythology. I still have to dig deeper into that. So that was all still new to me, you know. So I just came to Dragon Ball Z and to that culture, into the anime scene, brand new, like last year. That's my entrance. So how did I become a fan of Dragon Ball Z? In short, well, I was bored and I went looking for Dragon Ball Z lore because I'm a high fantasy fan. And I want to go like, okay, well, there's probably lore and I need to know about the universe. I'm going to look at another universe. If you are a Dragon Ball Z fan, you know there is no such thing as Dragon Ball Z lore. Come on. I sat there with a strange look in my face, looking at discussions about power levels. What the heck were power levels, right? I thought, well, there's going to be like a legend, there's going to be like a world, there's going to be like a history, and it's going to be like magic, and it's going to be like an explanation to how that works. There's going to be like several races with background stories and mythos. And no. There was a kid named Goku, and he went on an adventure, which is how Akira Toriyama writes his stories. The whole god hierarchy came later when he needed it, and I want to dig into that somewhere at the end of this video. So that didn't hook me. Then I was interested to look for those answers, but it didn't hook me. Know what hooked me? I kid you not. Was Dragon Ball Z Abridged. I became a fan of Dragon Ball Z faster than you become addicted to cocaine. I am not kidding. Like the third episode, I thought, this shit is amazing. Like, is it bad if you binge watch a show 3 times after one another? Like, the first time I watched it myself. Then I watched it with my brother, and then a little bit later on, after a little break, we watched it again. It was crazy. So yeah, that's how I became a fan. The Abridged did it. But now, what do I want to do with the fandom? What do I want to do as a Dragon Ball Z fan? What is this Dragon Ball Z content that I'm speaking of? Now, I'm not going to be your next Geekdom 101.2. I'm not going to solve lore continuity errors by translating from Japanese to English. I'm not here to establish the canonicity of the show and a correct timeline. I'm here to give you my own interpretation as a fan, my own theories and my own ideas about how I were to write it if I was in charge. So, sort of a fan fiction, basically. So let's start off with, what do I mean with the canonicity? When Frieza says, this is my final form, this is my birth form, this is the form in which I am born, that's the facts. You know, he is the character in the show, in the manga, is stating that is his original form, his birth form, and it is his final form. You know, and maybe he can find another form beyond that, but that is his original and at that current moment his final form. Now we go to what is an interpretation. Here's an example from Geekdom. He was talking about Frieza and his forms. And I don't remember in which video, but he was talking about Frieza. He said, like Resurrection of F. In Resurrection of F, they sort of get Frieza in sort of chopped up bits. I'm not going to explain the entire sort of scene, but they get one of these bits in which has a soul and his DNA, and they regenerate him from this part of him. And but when they regenerate him, rather than regenerating him in his final and true form, which we know is fact, they regenerate him in his first form. And he's wearing armor. He's actually wearing clothing when they do regenerate him. So even though it's sort of a cartoon show, we still sort of want a sort of pseudo-scientific explanation to why that is. So Geekdom says, this isn't canon, but the way I think it is, and that means he's giving us a interpretation, and not the actual facts, but interpretation. He states, well, I see it as a 3D printer. They print his body via his DNA, and they also print a suit to go with his body, so he isn't nude when they sort of resurrect him, if it were. That's an interpretation, you know. I'm gonna give you a lot of interpretations because the lore has a lot of open space, a lot of unexplained things. For example, why does Cell look like an insect? Why does he? If he has no DNA that is bug-like in any sort of way. I have an idea about that, and I want to share that idea with you. But the majority of my content will be sort of if I were to write it. Now, therefore we need to look at Akira Toriyama for a moment. So, just to give a brief sort of explanation, like an example explanation, right? Let's look at Akira Toriyama. He's great. I respect him a lot as a writer, but there is a series called Gripe Balls on Plague of Gripes, the channel. He explains the sort of flaws Akira Toriyama has as from a writing perspective, and I wish to give you a short analysis of how he sort of writes stories. So he is similar to my brother, only my brother is used to high fantasy, so he is used to world building. But what they have in common is they start off with a character, right? In this case, the character is Goku, and Goku was a kid and he had a tail, basically. That's how the story starts. So what he does, he comes up with a concept and a group of characters, and those characters are going on an adventure. Once this character sort of needs to go on the sort of next step, he makes up that next step. So let's say the character needs to defeat a dragon, and for that he needs a sword. So at that moment you come up with a sword and a history to why the sword is special. But before that he didn't come up with a sword yet. So he comes up, like for example take Frieza. Frieza is a major villain, but we don't know anything about his species, about his origins. We only know him as a singular character. The only thing we do know is that he has a father. We don't even know he has a mother. We don't even know what the species is called, and we only know that he has a brother, but he is non-canon. We don't even know if Frieza can obtain the extra 5th form that Cooler had. But we do know that he can turn gold when he needs to. So basically Akira Toriyama comes up with the entire species when it's necessary for the story to have that species. He came up with the Saiyans like Goku wasn't a Saiyan until Reddit showed up on Earth. Until then, Goku was a kid with a tail. And that is how he writes stories, in the moment writing. When he needs it, he makes it. And I admire the way he does it, because I wouldn't be able to do that. But the problem is you create, basically the lore is up for interpretation. That's why it works, but also that's exactly why it does not work at all. So when I write Dragon Ball Z, what I'm going to do is world building. I'm gonna make a video series about just Frieza's species. In fact, I already have a name. I'll call them Coldians. It's a cold pun because all of their names are cold puns. I simply turned the entire species name into a cold pun, Coldians. Now to sum it up and get to the point of this video, I'm going to present to you a video series that I call If I Were to Write It. Now this format I'm going to use for other fictions, but this is going to be my Dragon Ball Z version. There will probably be some videos that fall outside of this format. I'm probably going to call those Some Thoughts On and then the name of the topic. But If I Were to Write It format, basically the entire lore is up for grabs. What I'm going to do is create my own fan continuity. And in this continuity I'm going to rewrite some stuff I didn't like, or explain some stuff differently. Take for example the Buu arc. People didn't like that arc very much, and I think the problem within the Buu arc is mainly within the sort of training Trunks and Goten portion, where Trunks and Goten need to learn and they become really cocky and they sort of waste their Super Saiyan whatever, you know, it takes too long. So if I were to reimagine that, or reimagine the fight between Mr. Gohan and Super Buu, you know, if I were to rewrite that, what would I change? What sort of details, you know? It's basically a way for me to express my creativity, to take Dragon Ball Z and how it has inspired me and express my creativity and share it with the community and ask you what you think and how you feel about my ideas. And most importantly, because I'm a graphic designer, I will be drawing the characters in Adobe Illustrator, and I'll be sharing these images, these illustrations with you, and be talking about my design and my ideas behind their concept. So basically that content will be coming your way. Thank you very much for watching. I'm not gonna beg you to like and subscribe in every video, but do know that if you do, you will give me back some of the energy that I put into this video. Just seeing positive feedback grants me back some of the energy that I put in making these videos. So I would be really happy if you do. Again, thank you for watching, and I see you later because I don't see you ever. But instead I say, you see me later. Until next time.